Hello friends and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz and I am back with another emergency card kit. If you're new to my channel, an emergency card is one where we make the cards ahead of time, but we leave the sentiments off. That way, when an occasion arises, we can choose the design that best fits the recipient and the sentiment that best fits the occasion. To help you with this, I release a new free printable for my subscribers on the first and third Friday of every month. It is full of free printable sentiments in 3 different shapes and sizes, along with a card sketch full of measurements. On the Fridays in between, we have a stepped up emergency card video where we take this sketch and we step it up by making it fancy or turning it into a fun fold. Let's take a look at the kit. We're covering nerd and graduation sentiments this time, and I have split them into separate pages for you again. On the first page, we have circle sentiments that are 1 3/4 of an inch. The circle that is printed is ever so slightly bigger than that. So if you use a die or a punch, that circle is not going to show, but it helps you get it centered. Who needs Google when I have you? Nerd, intellectual badass. Add +1 to your wisdom modifiers. This is for all of your like nerdy board game, Dungeons and Dragons, and then a handful of like really nerdy video games. Happy birthday, nerd. I love your big brain. Getting old bites. You've definitely leveled up. Your age does not compute. And then we repeat those on the bottom. The next page has the same sentiments in the same size, but I've removed the circle in case you want to use a different size die or a different shape. That works really well. On the next page, I have a couple extra spaces, and so I've decided to take advantage of the nerdiness here and repeat what we had before and then add a couple of jokes for like an inside-outside punchline. Nerdiest of birthdays to my favorite meeple. Meeples are like the little wooden player tokens. Sometimes they're plastic that you would use to play something really nerdy. It has been scientifically proven people with more birthdays live longer. Then we have strip sentiments, and these will repeat. So you have 2 of each in each font. I have 4 different fonts. It's the same fonts we've been using. And then we get to our graduation sentiments. After all your hard work, it's finally time to celebrate. You look good in your weird hat. Level complete, congrats. You actually could probably use that for a birthday as well. And off he went to change the world. And then we have an off she went to change the world. Congrats on being super smart. Welcome to the real world. So very, very proud of you. And then they repeat down at the bottom. We have the same sentiments without the circle, and then we move on to our rectangle sentiments, where we have another sort of joke and punchline. Welcome to the real world where fun goes to die. We also have, and off they went to change the world. Then, like with our nerd sentiments, we have 4 different fonts of all the same sentiments, and they repeat as you move down, so you get lots and lots of sentiments here. Then on the last page, we have our card sketch with all of our measurements. If you are interested in the free printable kit, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to be notified every time there's a new free kit available. They come out at least twice a month, but lately I've had bonus kits and you don't want to miss them. For kits coming up, we have a masculine and Father's Day kit. And if you have ideas for sentiments for veterans, I would love to know. I've had quite a few requests, but I am totally out of my league there and could really use help with wording. So if you just put those in the comments below, that'd be amazing. We'll have an anniversary and wedding kit, a sympathy kit, and a get well / have a feel good day kind of kit. If you have ideas for wording or jokes or puns for any of those, I would love your input. You guys have incredible ideas and I always appreciate it. So the sketch this time is really pretty simple. I was playing around with different designs, and as I started layering up our standard sentiment mats, I just really loved the way that it looked. So we're gonna follow the sketch pretty closely for this first card, and then I'll show you how you might switch that up on the next one. I'm starting off with this gray layer that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I am using this very nerdy sort of game day paper that I love so much. I've had it in my stash for a while because I think I bought like 5 pieces of each. It's 12 by 12. I'll link it below. I just think it's great for masculine and nerdy cards, and I'm gonna add this to my card base. Next, I have 2 layers here. I have this pink matte layer that's 3 1/4 by 4 1/2, and I have cut mine out of some teal cardstock. And then I have more pattern paper that is 3 by 4 1/4. And I love that that means I can take a piece of 6 by 6 and cut it in half and get 2 cards out of it. This is from My Favorite Things, and I don't think they sell it anymore, but they do have a birthday background stamp, like a text stamp, that looks really similar. If you want to get fancy, you can pop this up on a little bit of foam and create some dimension, but I'm going to keep this one pretty simple. So I am just going to center this on my card, and I'm looking at these 3 margins, and if I get those right, usually the bottom one is just fine. For the focal layers here, these 2 pieces should be really familiar. We have a 2-inch circle and we have a 1.5 by 2.5 inch rectangle. And then in the background is this gray circle that is 2.25. And so I am just going to layer those together and try to get everything centered. I'm going to use my wet glue and go ahead and add this to the top of my card, just kind of centered in here. And then we can add our sentiment. For my sentiment, I'm going to use a circle sentiment this time, and I like this happy birthday nerd. I know sometimes we think about nerdiness as being a masculine trait, but every woman I know is a crazy nerd. So I like leaving this sort of gender neutral. Like there are masculine colors in here, but there's no reason you couldn't give this to a woman either. You could certainly be finished with the card here. I love the layout. I love the colors, the pattern paper, but I did color and cut out some pieces, so we're going to use them. They're from this PhotoPlay set that coordinates with the pattern paper I have in the background. I bought this at the same time as the paper and I've never used them. So I was like, we're putting them on a card. So I'm going to start just adding these to my card, trying to find an arrangement, and I'll spare you from watching all of that, and I'll come back once I've figured it out. So that only took me a few minutes, but I know if I pick them up, they are not going to go back down in the exact same place. So I have a sticky mat. I just got it on Amazon. It's sort of see-through, and I cut it into smaller pieces. I've been using mine for a couple of weeks, so mine is still pretty tacky, but not crazy tacky. And I am going to put this in the bottom left corner, and I'm going to line it up with the side of my card and the bottom, and I can pick up all these little pieces. Some people use press and seal, but it's too floppy and wiggly for me. It's embarrassing. I can't do that on camera. Once I've added glue to the back of everything, I can turn it over and just put it right back in the corner. And when I press it down, everything will be in the exact same place and I don't have to arrange it all again. Because my mat is pretty new, I actually left this on here for about a minute so that the glue had time to grab. And then when I pick it up, everything stays in place. And that finishes up card number 1. You guys, I love this. Like, it's so simple, but I'm going to make a bunch of these because during COVID, we played a ton of board games and that was really how we kept our sanity. So I have tons of people to give this to. So card number 2 is really similar. We're just going to make some small changes and I think it makes it perfect for a graduation card. I also want to show you this paper. This is from Echo Park and I got this notebook paper and then this is like the pattern of a composition notebook. I love that. I'm going to begin by adding my 4.25 by 5.5 inch piece of pattern paper to my A2 card base. Next, I have 3 rectangles. 2 of them are on the card sketch, right? The black one is 3.25 by 5.5. The pattern paper is 3 by 4.25. But I cut this silver piece right in between the 2, okay? So it's 3 1/8 by 4 3/8. And what it does is create these tiny little borders. And this is perfect if you're trying to create matte layers in school colors. foam tape and a little wet glue to the back to help me get this centered. And again, I'm kind of looking at the top and the two sides when I set this down. For the most part, we're using the same matting, but we're changing the order and we're going to add an extra layer this time. So this is my 2-inch circle and I'm just going to center that right on the 2¼ inch circle. And for my rectangles, this is the same rectangle we always have, okay? So that is 1½ by 2½, but I cut one 1/8 of an inch smaller in silver and it matches the matting right here. For the sentiment on this one, I'm going to use one of my rectangle sentiments. I like this one in the bottom. And so I'm going to put this in my trimmer and I am lining up the tick marks at the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to slide my blade and stop right there. Okay, don't go any further. You want to keep this top part intact. Then I'll cut the rest of them as well. When I'm done, I want it to look like this so that all of my strips are still attached right at the top, and then I can rotate. And I'm going to line up the tick marks on the side in my trimmer the same way. If I had cut all the way through the top, I wouldn't have these here to help me keep everything straight. I'm going to use this one. Congrats on being super smart. To decorate my card, I have a couple pieces from the Gnome Drive graduation from Spellbinders. It also has a giant diploma that you can kind of see here, and then there's that cute little pencil. It coordinates with the original Gnome Drive that has the car and the gnome. But even if you don't like gnomes, all of Karen Burniston's critters fit in this car, along with a lot of my favorite stamped images. I've been using that set a lot. If you've been here, you're like, Sarah Liz, we know, we've seen it. But I bring it up because they're on super sale. If you're watching this video as it comes out, we're in the middle of the Spellbinders warehouse sale. I'll link to the sale below. I'll link to those items, but I'm also going to link you to a video that I did about this sale that kind of walks you through it and helps you with links to particular categories in the sale because it's sometimes a little tricky to navigate. I'm going to go ahead and glue my apple to the bottom corner of my card, but then we're going to be really careful with the hat. Okay, so he's going right there. I want this guy hanging off the edge. In theory, I would like to be able to remove that sentiment if I change my mind later. There's a fair bit of dimension because of all the layers here, so I added some foam just around the edges here and then at the top. And I'm going to double check and make sure that everything lays nicely and I don't have foam hanging off the side. And then I can peel off the backing and add this very carefully. I am not putting glue in the middle there because that will overlap our sentiment and I won't be able to change it. And that finishes up card number 2. It's really simple, but I love this one too. And I think it's super great if you have a lot of graduations to go to and you need to make a bunch of cards. For the third card, we're going to simplify the sketch. I'm using the same base pieces. So this is my pattern paper that is 4¼ by 5½. And then I have these same two pieces, the pink and purple layers, and I'm just going to glue those together as well. Once again, I have added foam tape to the back of my panel just to pop it up a little bit. All right, my friends, here's what happened. I assembled this robot. It's from the Trinity Stamps Robot Builder, and I hadn't used it yet, and I was just dying to. And I didn't realize how big he was. There is no way I'm gonna fit all of that up here, okay? You know what though? That's okay. We're gonna make the card anyway. It comes with this little oval that he can rest on. And so then I have to decide, do I want my sentiment at the top or do I want my sentiment at the bottom? I think I want it at the bottom. The sketch is really just meant to be a jumping off point, right? So we're gonna go ahead and glue those pieces down. For my sentiment on this card, I'm going to use one of the strip sentiments. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this in half, and I want to cut right through those tick marks in the middle. You certainly could use the tick marks to cut this out with your trimmer, but I'm going to use dies today. This is the Pretty Pink Posh Sentiment Labels set, and it's got lots of different shapes that you can use. So I am just using the basic strip die for now, and I'm looking for one that fits. I like the Your Age Does Not Compute with my robot. So I am going to just center that as best I can, and then I'll tape it on there and run it through my die cutting machine. So I'm going to pop my sentiment out of there, and this has a lot of texture on it. So I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to go over the back of it with my bone folder. You could also just run this between your plates with no die through your die cutting machine, and that will flatten it out too. Usually you see me layer this stitched rectangle on top of the scalloped rectangle, but this time I think I just want the stitched rectangle. What I like about using these dies is that it makes it really easy to set a place for my sentiment. And then if I decide I want to change it, I know exactly how to cut it to make the new one fit as well. I just use the die again. So I'm going to add this on there with my removable adhesive, just like my other sentiments. And that finishes up card number 3. It isn't quite the sketch, but I still think it's fun, and it was inspired by that sketch. So those are our 3 cards for today. I would love to know which of these 3 is your favorite. If you are interested in this 11-page free printable, all I ask is that you subscribe to my channel. And if you click that subscribe button and ring the bell, you'll be notified every time there's a new free kit. These come out on the 1st and 3rd Friday of the month, but lately I've been adding in a few bonus kits, and you don't want to miss them. You'll find all the instructions for downloading the kit in the description box below the video. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.